Welcome, everyone.
Were you able to watch that, Trent?
The video you sent?
Yeah.
Thank you. It looked good.
Yeah, I like the editing. Is that the same one? Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We are here at the Dallas After Effects user group. Making sure the stream is running. Yeah, and I have some new folks here tonight. Glad you guys are here. Folks I hadn't seen in a little while. Glad you're here. And so we are going to look at some. We're gonna talk about some stuff, and then we're gonna look at some stuff in Fuse, Adobe Fuse, which is new-ish to the Adobe family. Maybe it's just new to me.
It's beta now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is beta. But to kind of start things off, and maybe I don't know if it would be interesting for me to just kind of do notes here on the screen while we talk about this, but I was talking with Sharon here about freelance, and freelance is a fickle thing. It can be wonderful. It can also not be wonderful. But if part of this discussion, I would like it to be people who have experience freelancing, and we're going to talk mostly about budgets, I think, tonight. Bidding. And then from people, Pete, maybe like you, or anybody else who uses freelancers, kind of what do you expect and what do you hear from them that is good or bad, and how you work with them. But let's pick a font. Verdana, Museo, what do we like?
Comic Sans?
Nope. Get out.
Papyrus.
Nope. Get out.
LinkedIn.
Okay, Future it is. Way to go, everybody. Good job.
Unilateral decision.
Oh, the old military, what's that old, you know, the spray on?
Oh, the stencil?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, NASA actually will allow you to use Comic Sans. It's on their branding.
Like approved.
For children. For doing the kids stuff, yeah. I think they're the only company.
For destroying children's lives. We're NASA. We hate kids.
We want to crush their dreams.
Yeah. So, okay. We're going to talk about freelance. And let's talk about freelance isn't free, right? So let's say we'll talk about bidding, because that was the question, Sharon, that you brought up. Bidding. And come on, man. The idea here was that your client came to you and said, hey, we have this exciting thing we need you to do, and we need you to do it really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And so you didn't know exactly how to approach the bid for them. Did they give you a good kind of brief on it?
So the initial brief was we have this is a previous video we did, and so it had some character animation in it, but real simple stuff, and most of the animation work was pretty simple. And they said, we have this, and we want to do something like this, and can you do it in less than a week? And when I went
so you had something to go off of.
Yeah,
okay.
I had a previous video that they had done, which was like 6 minutes or something. I mean, it was ungodly long. So I made it about 45 seconds, and I went, okay, that's as far as I'm getting. So that was the initial information.
Yeah.
And so what he was mostly interested in is, can you do this kind of thing, and can you do it in a week or by the certain date? And I said, Well, it kind of depends on what you want to do, because this particular video had a lot of live action in it, and it had, and then it would go to an infographic kind of thing, like an animated infographic, and chat a little bit. So that was the initial.
Yeah.
And then didn't hear from him for. So he initially said I needed him in like a week, and then disappeared. So for a week I didn't hear anything. So I went, okay, they've got somebody, fine, you know. And then he pops up a few days ago and says, well, here's the brief again, and can you do it by the 1st, September 1st? Well, that's less than 2 weeks. And so at this point, he had sent me a link to a Google Drive where they had a script, an infographic, some AI files of different characters, and a VO track. And the script was your standard, you know, animation script. And all it said for the animation part is something weird, but it was basically animate this.
Yeah. No direction at all.
Yeah, it was virtually no direction, even though they said we'll give you lots of direction, you know. And that made me pretty nervous. That was the initial, like, oh God, what do I do with this? And the interesting thing is that the exact wording that they used wasn't just animate this, it was animate some word like pixel animation or something like that to the infographic. But it was worded really odd to where I didn't even understand what they were saying. But I didn't want to at first appear like I was an idiot. Like, oh, that's an industry term, she should know that, you know. So I stuck it out there to the Sound alumni, and one of my friends responded and looked at it. Well, they hadn't uploaded all the files yet. So I had no VO, and so I was really confused. And finally he kind of said, this is what they want. And what they basically wanted was a small 58 animated piece of the infographic, which was a PDF, which means I would have to recreate that, and the animated files, you know, the animated characters, to the VO with a couple of other logos and things like that.
Yeah.
But that's the extent of the direction that I got.
So, my advice to you, do you remember what I mean?
Yeah, you had two choices that you gave me, and one of them was run.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other one was make a quote so huge that they'll go, oh, no, you know.
It'll be worth your time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so even if you have to do nights and weekends and all that.
Yeah, it would be financially worth it.
Yeah.
And I actually talked to a couple of other people. One of them was a SOM classmate that I really trust a lot, and he's in the UK. And his advice was, and I thought this was really appropriate, because he said, the problem with this is, A, you've never worked with this person before, or this company, or this client. And I think it was FedEx was the client. The second part is, there's really, even though they gave me some of the elements, I still would have to do the design. So I would still have to do the storyboarding out, and there was literally no time for an approval. So I would have to storyboard it all, which 58 seconds doesn't seem like a lot, but it is a lot when you're doing every beat, you know.
Right.
And it was a quite wordy script. So to me, it's not a sentence, it's a beat. You know, I'm animating to these beats or these thoughts. And so the way I do it is I have to lay it all out, either in Illustrator or do all the elements in After Effects and time the pieces, so a previs. And so if I'm going to do the actual storyboards, there needs to be approval time. If I'm going to do previs, there needs to be approval time. And he said, there's literally no time in that schedule for an approval time, unless you're sitting there with the client and him looking over your shoulder going, yes, no.
Yeah.
So that was what my other friend said is run as fast as you can. And so I wrote him back and said, you know, I just don't think with my other previous engagements that I can make that. And he turned right around and said, well, if we softened up the due date, could you do it? So here I am back texting trying to get like, oh God, you know, this is terrifying. And you know, since I don't work freelance very much, most of the freelance companies I work for, they would call me up and say, here's the project, here's how much it's going to pay, you have this much time to do it in, can you do it? You know, so all of that, the invoicing and all that stuff is already taken care of. But when they put the ball in your court, my biggest question to him is, you know, if I really wanted the job, how do I bid to where I'm not out of I bid too high and then they run, or I bid too low and then I'm beating myself up over this project, you know, where I end up working, you know, 20 cents. Yeah. And so how to write up a bid, because I have 3 or 4 examples and they're all different. You know, how much do you put in that? Do you just do a deal memo? Do you actually do a contract? You know, how do you do, if any of you guys are familiar with Joey Corman from School of Motion, he just put out a book called The Freelance Manifesto. But he's very vague in the actual bidding. I mean, he has some examples, but, you know, his examples are pretty international. You know, we're Texas, so what regionally do we charge here? You don't want to undercut all your fellow animators. You don't want to overcharge. So there's this lots of range and too much wiggle room to be able to narrow it down. And you can't Google it. And of course, no one wants to talk about what they're making. So you're in this kind of, you know, taboo area of what to do.
So my initial advice that I usually give people when they ask this is just how I try to bid myself. The first thing is, how long do I think it'll take? I feel like at this point, I've kind of have an idea of how long I think it'll take me to do certain things. And even if I underestimate the time that it's going to take me, once I'm through kind of this process, I'll typically end up right around, give or take, a few hours of what I think it will be. So I try to estimate that out, and then think about, you know, if I charge how much I want to charge for this, then what will the budget look like? So if I'm charging $20 an hour and I think it's going to be 20 hours, $400, do I think, one, is that worth it to me to do that? And then 2, is it worth it to the client? So I look at my cost that I want per hour that I feel like is, you know, if I'm going to miss family time or if I'm going to miss sleep, then that's worth it to me. And then something that I had not done in the past was just kind of what I thought the client would be interested in. I heard somebody say that not too long ago, and it's like, man, you know, if I'm not going to just bid the client and say, I think it's going to be worth $1 million to you because you're going to make $4 million off of this video. But it is important to think, I mean, if they're going to just use this as a marketing piece and just hit Facebook and rake in views and rake in sales and all that kind of stuff, then me doing a video for $80 doesn't command respect from them, right? Mm-hmm. So how much do I think it's going to be worth to them? And that, you know, I think it's all relative. I'm not sure I know really what it's going to be worth to somebody, but I can take a guess and compare it to my numbers that I come up with. And once I do that, then I'm real low tech about it. I just write an email and say, this is what I plan to do for you. This is how much I think it's going to cost per these things. And even if I'm doing it per hour, I may break down, like, I will be editing for you for this amount of time, and I will do this for this amount of time. And I build in, like, I'm pretty sure you're going to come back with revisions, or I'm going to burn out H.264 movies to send to you. And so I kind of work that in to what I think the hourly cost is going to be. And thankfully, I don't want to toot any horns, because the moment I do, I'll totally underestimate everything. But thankfully, it's basically worked out within an hour or two of what I've estimated. And usually if I go over what I've estimated, depending on the client and depending on if it's at their request, like, oh, well, we said this, but we changed our minds, then I'll make sure they know, well, okay, so it's going to be this much to do whatever changes you made. But if I go over just because it's me, then I will not charge them for it. Just because I don't want to set up bad expectations with them. A lot of times, if I go under, depending on how difficult they were to deal with, and if I actually got to spend time with my family during the process, then I will just say, hey, it didn't take me quite as long as I thought, so I'm not charging you as much as I had initially said. That is a case-by-case basis on some clients.
So do you, when you're thinking about your time, you know, like you said, how long will it take? One of the things I've noticed, especially for an explainer video, is that if you have time to do the process correctly, which is one, you do all your storyboarding out, and then they get it, and they have to put it through all their approvals and their approvers, and then they get it back to you, and sometimes that can be the longest part. You know, just getting them to sign off on the boards and all the changes that they make then. And to me, that variable is, you know, how long do you think it's going to take for your approvers? That kind of thing, you know?
But so the important thing there is that they understand the deadlines.
Okay.
Them approving something doesn't affect your time you're spending on it. It only affects how quickly you get to your deadlines, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, but if you say, okay, I'm going to have to spend 20 hours editing or animating, and 18 hours doing the design part of it, but the hard delivery date is September 1st, let's say.
Right.
If they keep going back around and round and round on the approvals of the storyboards, then your time window for you doing the editing to make that deadline gets narrower and narrower. So at some point, do you say you
say right up front?
Yeah.
When you send in the initial email, you've requested September 1st as the date that you want this done. In my estimation, I will have an approval to you during the process. I'll have an approval to you, more final approval by this date. And when I send it to you, I'll need a quick turnaround on that in order to make the deadline. If I meet my expectations with you, then I'll expect you to meet your expectations with me so that I can make the date. And if you guys spend 5 days approving something when you should have taken, an afternoon to do it, then we won't hit your deadline.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys just have to be okay with it.
When you send your initial quote, do you put the milestone times in it? I know you might say, style frames or design work, 20 hours, animation, 20 hours. Do you say pending approval, or do you put all that in the fine print at the bottom, or?
Depending on, if it has to have a tight deadline, then I will put, this is when I expect to have this to you, and then I'll need approval so I can get this to you by this date.
So you will put a schedule in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe it's not the most fine-tuned schedule, but at least with some kind of large milestones.
Okay.
Pete, do you ever get contracts from freelancers?
Some of them are pretty organized and on top of it like that, and what I love about that from the other side of that is there's a clear picture for the workflow. And usually, every time we've had anybody who's that prepared, it was storyboard process is going to look like this, and there's going to be X number of revisions, and then I'm going to send you a partial animation, and you're going to have X number of revisions, and then I'm going to send you, the full animation and have X number of revisions. So I have a clear picture. I can turn around to my team and those that I've had to pitch the project to and lay it out, and we're all super confident in that process. And it hasn't backfired on me in that we've never run out of revision times. We've always been able to say, boom, 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 here. And that puts the onus on us to get all our ducks in a row.
Right.
So they've got the information, whether we're doing a song video or something like that.
Mhm.
And I want it to look like this. Here's some reference guides. Here's the timing. Here's my big moments that I want to do something specific for. And then send that off and let them interpret that into something better than I could ever come up with. And so when it's real structured like that, it also helps me sell them the amount that it's going to cost.
Mhm.
Because that's
Okay.
usually our bigger projects, and it's not a number that we're usually we're not usually spending that kind of money on projects. We try to do it as much as we can internally. So those bigger projects where I'm having to go, it's going to cost us $4,000 to do this, or it's going to cost us $5,000 to do that, and they're like, but here's the process. And okay, well, I'm confident that we'll be able to get our creative say and get our money's worth out of it.
So is that what you want to see when they initially send you a quote? Do you want to see that much, or do you just want to see the basic times, like, design's 20 hours, this is 20 hours, it's going to cost this much?
When it's been that way, usually it's per project.
Okay.
All of the couple of guys that I've worked with in that way, they like the flexibility of it per project. For them, that gives them, it's going to cost this. And then I know that they're going, I know it's going to take probably this amount of time,
Mhm.
but when they have a number up front, they can say, you know what, if I want to put a little more into this, I can totally do that.
Okay.
And we're not taking nickel and diming, going back and forth, going, all right, are you done now?
So you just rather see a flat rate?
For some projects, if it's a smaller thing, an hourly rate or a day rate. Usually, I work on day rates.
Do you? Okay.
For motion graphics, especially, day rates for us have been the easiest because that gives some flexibility. But if they kick it out and they cheat and use some prior projects and reuse elements and they can knock it out in half the time, don't tell me, then they win.
Sure.
So
when you say a flat rate, a day rate, do you want to see, especially if are they remote when they're working, or they come in?
yes.
Okay. When they're doing the day rate on a project, did they say it's going to be 3 days?
We talk about the project as thoroughly as we can, and I try to give them as clear a picture.
Okay.
Best case, worst case scenario, we try to rein that chaos in for my sake, because I usually have a workflow. I got deadlines to meet,
Sure.
and so I don't want to string them along forever.
Do you want to see a number of revisions, or do you just want a time? Like, this has to be done by this time, and you will get it at this date.
For a bigger project, a number of revisions is still important because it could get into revision chaos, and that's no fun for anybody. So setting that boundary for me helps me get all of the people I have to get things approved to,
Okay.
and say, no guys, we got this. This is the time we have to do this. We can't come back and change your mind because that's money, and money talks.
Okay.
But that, it also depends on the project. So
Okay.
if there's a lot of copy or a lot of dialogue and lots of subjective ways of interpreting it, then you might just have to take a shot in the dark and maybe say, no, hate it. Let's change it all.
I was
And you-
gonna
Yeah, go ahead.
say, based on your situation you were talking about, I've been in a couple of situations like that where they wanted a super fast turnaround, and especially if I don't know them, I think I just tell them I want this much. Like in your case, I was immediately thinking like I would charge $5,000 for that, and say I want half up front, especially if I don't know them.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't usually get money up front. So what's the consensus in here about?
So I've always been told if it's 5 figures,
Mhm.
you want half up front.
Okay.
Or if it's someone I never worked with and it's 5,000 or more, I usually ask for. And if it's a quick deadline, if it sounds shady like that,
Yeah.
I would do it. Usually I don't. If it's less than 10,000, which I don't get many of those, but I don't usually ask for half up front. But if I don't know them, they seem shady, or if it's a lot of money, I will.
Well, that brings me to another question. The 50% upfront, the 50% when the project's complete, net 30. And so I asked another friend of mine, well, how do you get 50% upfront? I mean, logistically, how does that happen? Because you're not going to wait. If you have a really tight turnaround, you're not going to wait for a check to arrive.
No, you just start working. You send them a invoice. You just start working.
So someone was telling me about Wave Apps. Have you guys ever heard of that?
I've used PayPal the last 2 projects I've worked freelance,
Okay.
and they just send it to my email, and I just pull it, and
Okay. I looked into Wave Apps and I set up an account with them, and you can take make it up a merchant account. You can get credit cards taken, but it's like I think it's like 2.3%. I don't know what
2 or
PayPal.
3% was pretty common.
Yeah, 30 cents a transaction, and I didn't know what PayPal was.
PayPal?
Mm-hmm.
People who use it, you can use it to transfer money between like friends or family.
No.
They have a rate they take out.
No, the merchant.
Oh, I'm
account.
sorry.
The
Yeah.
merchant.
Well,
Sorry.
okay. Let's
I
talk
see
about
how it is
PayPal.
now. Okay, sorry.
Have you heard of Facebook?
What, MySpace?
There are
I
things
think
we
it's
have
maybe-
computers.
It's 3%, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's pretty comparative.
FreshBooks also offers that. If you invoice through FreshBooks, they have a payment system that the client can pay through, but it's a similar fee structure.
Okay.
And what was the one you said?
Wave apps?
Yeah.
Wave, W-A-V-E, and then apps. Because I have Quicken home and business, you know, and that's what I've done my own personal, and then I would invoice and just print out and invoice and send, and that's okay for net 30.
Right.
But when you're asking for 50% up front before you even start the project, you know, that was my question: is how do I collect that 50%?
Yeah, like I would, and I've done it before. I would just go ahead and invoice them and start working. If they don't ever get it to me, I'm out a couple days worth of work, but at least I know, okay, only wasted 2 days. And usually, I've never had a case where they didn't send it. So I just immediately start working, assuming that they're going to be decent people, and send it to me.
Okay.
I've only had one client that I never got money from, and that they were a little sketchy. I got money for the first 2 jobs, and then they gave me a 3rd job, and I never heard from them.
That begs another question: cancellation during the project. I know that came up after Joey put his book out. Someone said, "What happens when you're knee deep and you're in the weeds, and then all of a sudden crickets? Like you don't hear from them anymore, or they come back and say, well, we've decided that we're not going to go forward with this project." You know, so I can see with the 50%, you know, that helps that situation. But if in the situation where you said, you know, the first 2 times we worked with them, they were fine, and then now we're into our second project and they've just disappeared. And you've done several days of work, and, you know, so do you put that in the deal memo that says, you know?
I know of a person who does editing, and what he does is he actually does it in three stages. He'll break it up into 3 parts, so he'll have a 3rd up front so that he can start the project, because he's letting go of or putting aside other projects so that he can do this project. Then once he's done with the first draft, or just like, you know, he's done, he sends it to them so he can get feedback, and so right there at that benchmark, he gets the next 3rd. And so then once he gets the feedback, he'll make the final, and that's when he goes ahead and releases the final to them, with maybe one other option to give like further details if they want further revisions. But he'll do it in those 3 stages. That way even if they decide halfway through that, you know what, we've decided to go a totally different way, or we just got taken over by another company, this is going to be on hold permanently until executives can decide, at least you've been compensated, you know, during various parts along the way, is how he does it.
I do like the idea of the 3rds, because you get a 3rd up front, which means you start your design, and you get the next 3rd when you've delivered the design and they've signed off on it, you know, and then you're into the animation phase. So at least you've gotten 2/3 of the money at that point. So
That means they have skin in the game.
yeah.
Right? A lot of times, if
Don't minimize that.
the people that I usually work with are to me that I've kind of vetted a little bit, are trustworthy enough to make sure that even, and this one client is not net 30, they're net 45, and sometimes I have to remind them to pay me, but they always pay me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sometimes I remind them a week ahead of time, sometimes a couple days ahead of time, and then 2 days after, but they do pay. But getting that 3rd up front means that they have a little skin in the game.
And I think they feel more comfortable maybe with a 3rd. What do you think?
Yeah.
Would you rather see a half up front or a 3rd?
I mean, if it's a long up front, a little more like 2, 3, 4 weeks of editing, I can understand that, because you got expenses and copy to buy. So
But how does that work with your
the
company?
number of times I need to cut a check is more pain in the butt on my end.
Right.
But if we're talking a big project, then 50% up front or a third up front, if that gets you involved, that gets skin in the game on my end, but you've got money now, you owe me some
Work.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're both bought in, and so that's worth it to me. If it was a $5,000 job, I'm gonna be like, dude, we really need to split this 3 ways. Let me give you half up front and half up at the end. If it was a $10,000, $15,000 job, if we're doing big live production and they've got crew costs or rental costs and stuff like that, then we can figure out what we need to do for that, because I get that.
Yeah, the first job I ever did as a freelancer, it was like a $2,000 job, and I went with the whole, I'm gonna do the third up front, do third, and then it got so ridiculous because the checks got really weird, and I think that was the last time I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that anymore.
So maybe a half and a half is a better way to go.
Unless if it's a longer time, and I mean, if you're committing time and you're having to say no to other people because you just committed to doing a project and delivering in 3 weeks, then that's real money that you're potentially passing up.
I'll usually do 15% up front, and then 30%.
Oh my god.
28%.
I will say
if you have deductions.
the majority of my jobs, I don't get anything till I'm done.
Yes. The creative field is a lot about trust and a lot about being able to communicate and saying, hey, neat look, but I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't talk about creative stuff and still be able to work together, then the money stuff is just going to be way worse. So you've got to find people you trust. And that first job with them, hopefully they find out about you through something. If they just called you off the internet, then a little bit of a structure shows that you know what you're doing, and here's how we can get this ball started. If they haven't done that before, they're going to be learning just as much, and that's scary for both of you.
So I'll divulge what I bid for that job and the time. And I said, he said, well, can we relax the date? And I said, well, you're into Labor Day weekend. And so it would be a couple of days after Labor Day weekend. Because I didn't really want the job, but I thought if they pay enough. And I bid $3,200 for it, which is, I didn't have to do the initial design. So there is some design work that I would have to do. And then I figured half of that for design and half of that for animation. And then they wrote me back the next day and said, thank you, we went with someone else. Which is fine.
That also proves to you whether you're worth it to them.
Yeah.
If they just want somebody's high school son or daughter to do the project for them, and let them do it. Let them fail, because they'll realize spending $3,200 really wasn't that big a deal, because now they have a crappy video and they have to come back to you or
someone else.
Yeah.
So did you guys think $3,200 was too much or too little, or what do you think about that?
What was the length of it? 6 minutes again?
It was this one was it was 58.
50 seconds.
58 seconds. But there was a lot of design. I mean, there was serious design that had to be done.
Yeah.
And also I would have to recreate the infographic because they just gave me a PDF.
Yeah.
So I'd have to do the design work. If it were just, hey, we've got the storyboards, we've got all the graphics laid out for you, we just need someone to put some motion to it, then I would have cut that in half and said, okay, $1,500, $1,200 or something like that.
Seems pretty fair to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have said 5 just because I would not have wanted to work with them.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, it really took me a lot to even put $3,200 because I kind of have that. Even though I make 1 million of videos, I mean, I make 100 videos a year. Whether it's explainers or live action.
Brag.
No, it's such
Twice now.
It's just no, I'm not bragging.
I'm kidding.
It's a lot of it is just crap because we have
you just have to turn out videos.
We have to,
right?
and when you're corporate, and I'm not dissing my company at all, but you get people who say, "Oh my God, we forgot we need a video,"
and then you turn in something that you just threw together after lunch one day, and you're like, "Oh, I can't believe I'm letting anybody watch this," and they're over the moon. Oh, we love it.
Oh, that
it has Jim in it. It's great.
that actually happened. I had to get, in this last project, I had to get a template, and I was like, oh, I hate templates, because you have to reverse engineer them and everything. And I had no storyboard time or anything, and I threw it in there and just went, chicken bone, you know, please like it. And they did. And then, so that was a 2-week turnaround, and that was basically doing the design and animation in one step. And I hate that, because, you know, using animation as your design process it's
limiting.
It's stressful.
Yeah.
You know, because you
Well,
put
you're
a
doing
lot of work.
and you don't know if they like the first frame. And
Yeah,
the
and they come back, I hate the font, or whatever.
Or they don't like some way you keyframe. You know, it's like one particular element of it. You know, that they
Well,
have
it's,
a hard time with. You know. Oh,
yeah, it's two aspects. One is just the overall design.
Yeah.
You know, the second is the motion of it. So they've complicated their own time by getting just, you know, like someone goes, oh, I don't like the way that moves. Yeah, but do you like the content? I can
yeah,
choose the
like,
direction, you know? Yeah.
What you don't want is for them to come back after you designed while you were animating and say, we really don't like the cartoony look.
I got that.
We want it to look a little more real life. Nope.
Or I
I promise you want it to look cartoony. I promise.
Or I've gotten one of my clients said, oh, here, I showed the executives your ideas. And then I get what file they sent them, which we agreed on graphics and everything. And they just went out to Adobe Stock or Google and just grabbed images. They had 3D images, they had flat images, they had shadowed images and all this stuff. And I went, and they're like, we love it, this is great. And I go, whoa, where did this come from? Oh, I just thought I'd just throw those out there. And I go, you don't understand, these people sign off on that image. We can't get that Google image of that person driving a car, you know? And so, you know, that's what happens when you lose that approval. And that brings me back to this project that we're talking about is there's no time. So if I don't know the client very well and I don't know the production company very well, I don't have that.
That's a tough one to start off the relationship with. It'd be much easier to say, sure, I can do something that I know how to do, and then start there and build on that and understand the revision process. Are they super fast? Are they super slow? Do they give me 1,000 revisions, or do you get a really clear picture and you know that it's just a few tweaks on one pass of revisions? Doing a project like that on a quick turnaround is not a great way to start out a relationship. If they don't understand that, that's a flag, not a fail, but that's a red flag.
Okay. Well, thanks, guys, because I like my support group now.
I just realized it turned into your support group.
It did.
So, to kind of keep it from being only a support group, what about lawyers? Has anybody ever had to get lawyers involved in anything like this? Like, I did a $10,000 job, and they just didn't pay after I delivered.
Thankfully, no.
No? Okay, good. That's encouraging.
Is that throwing good money after bad? I mean,
Well, I don't know. I mean, do you just go, hey, my uncle's a lawyer. He has a letter that he just put, just letterhead and a form thing that says, you're going to need to pay my client or I'm going to need to get involved. I don't know. I've never had to do that. I did a job, like you said, or someone said, for someone that just ended up not paying me. And after a few years, it was like, I guess I'll just let that go. Just experience.
I probably would never get a lawyer involved unless it was like $100,000 job, something crazy. But I would probably, if they're not paying, I would probably cut my losses, offer them a discount, and be like, hey, look, if you get it to me in the next week, I'll, knock whatever off. And if they still don't, then I'm just like, well, I probably will just move on and never work with them again.
Yeah.
So I think 5,000 and below is small claims court.
Yeah.
Which means all you can do is get a judgment. You can't enforce. I mean, you can put a lien against them. You can try to run their credit. Like put a collection on them, but you can't break their kneecaps and get the money. You know what I mean? I mean, there's no way you can enforce.
Right, you can't do that.
Sure,
we know what you're saying.
You can't enforce. You can't get a cop over there and force them to give you money. So there's no way to enforce that.
So you don't want me to call Uncle Benny?
What's that?
I don't need to call him.
I'm coming over there with a few of my boys. Yeah. But I think you can go to what is it, district court if it's like 10 grand or more or something like
lawyers
that.
cost like $5 grand a day, so
I know.
you gotta be looking for
Well,
something.
and they put you on a retainer and they just look out the window and think about your project and off comes the retainer, you know. So I think I agree. What was your name?
Devin. Sorry.
I agree with Devin. If it has to be a good chunk of money before you could.
Yeah, if there's a chance that lawyers need to be involved, I want to see some thirds up front or something. Or if I'm hiring a grip truck and hiring crew and all of that, that money's coming, at least a big chunk of that money, so that if they just cut and run, I can still pay the crew, and I'm not out money.
That even kind of goes maybe to if you're not a designer and they need something designed, either you're going to hire the designer and have to pay them as well, then that money up front would help. Or maybe if you don't feel comfortable with that, just passing that person over to the client and say, hey, you need some design work done. This is your person you need to use. They know how to work with me. They know the stuff they need to do. So work with them, and then they'll get the files to me.
Okay.
You should always mark up.
Mark up. Yeah. You pay the designer, so you can mark it up.
Ah, I see. That's a good trick. Thanks for giving us all your insights.
That's not me. That's everybody.
That's capitalism.
Yeah. Sure, I can.
I've got a more general question.
Yeah.
If you've got like your key skill set, like what you feel is like really your wheelhouse, but like you've also got like some other things, like you've dabbled one or two like projects and whatever, how like closely would you stick to what you are super confident that you can do well and fast in like freelance, or like if an opportunity comes up where you think you could do it, but one, you'd have to do quite a bit of like research on the front end and like bring opportunity for development. Like, how do you weigh those factors?
Sometimes you learn how to swim best when you get thrown in the deep end.
Yeah, if you want to do it, if you want, if that's something you want to do. I mean, if you get specialized in rotoscoping and that's all you want to do for the rest of your life, hey, go see a shrink. But then just specialize. But if you want, or if you like money, go for it. Do it. I've turned down a couple of gigs recently that I regret. I could have done some pretty cool live event stuff because I was teaching it. Then I saw the event and I was
like, if you're out looking, you're having to watch 20 hours of Cinema 4D tutorials and do trial and error until you get to where you can actually do the thing that you promised you could do, then you probably don't want to charge them for the time you're spending researching, but only for the time that you are productive for them. And a little bit of that, we do trial and error anyway when we're animating, right? But if you
haven't cracked Cinema 4D open and you're doing 3D animation, then figure out what that day, find out someone else's day rate for that, and then stay up all night learning it.
But how many times do you get a project where they're like, okay, for this one scene, we do want to do this one cool thing where you have these things flying through the air and swirling around the person.
Yeah. If they don't come to you, if they're not likely to come to you with specific things, how much do you stretch yourself if you think it might work in the project versus like you can do it? Like is that any sort of standard balance of like
you're saying put a little lanyap on it just to make them.
Or even for your own sake.
For your own sake.
Of like,
I think
wanting to try something in a project more for you, where it'll still work and still be a great project, but. it
depends on the deadline. If I got like a month,
that's good.
then I can do it. If I have 2 weeks, probably gonna just do the tricks that I know.
Yeah. That's good.
But there have been times where I have pushed myself and like, oh, it's gonna be so awesome, and then they were like, didn't like it.
That swirly ribbon doesn't fit our brand, so.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, maybe if you're going to do that, get a little approval on the front end. Yeah. I think that would keep you from spending all your time.
And be honest about it, too.
Yeah.
Because if you get excited about it, they might be like, "Oh, that would really be cool." You know, we can kind of afford to add that thing to the project if you feel like you can pull it off. So that, you know, open communication I think is huge in all of this. If you get a client and they just don't talk to you ever, maybe try and finish the job and be done with them. But open communication and making sure that they're available for you when they need to be, not all the time, but when they need to be on the phone and by email, to make sure that you're getting your questions answered and they understand where you're coming from with the budget and the timing and all that. That's very important just through the entire project.
Do you guys see more, you that freelance, do you see more of you having to go in-house or be remote?
I'm 100% remote. I wouldn't mind going in-house if my job allowed it, but I don't have any companies that have remote places I can go. So. Yeah.
I've done remote as well, and everything just gets done via emails and telephone.
There are a few people that come to these meetings who do actually go on site. Even you know David Womack? Yeah, he does like weeks or months at a time on site. They just like, okay, we're going to pay you for the 8 hours that you're here today, whether you're doing what we need you to do or not, because we want to be able to walk in there where you are and say, we need a building thing elevated right now. Go.
Okay, I will admit that one of my freelance in the film industry was doing post-production on cheaters.
Nice.
But they paid me.
That's awesome.
Hey man, it pays. It pays.
It pays. It was awful, but it paid.
One of the husbands on that show went to my high school.
Was he the one cheating, or did he?
Yeah.
Small world, isn't it?
His name was Crash.
There's a lot of
Very
quality
exciting.
people in that.
Why am I not surprised that's his name?
Crash Parks.
Okay, well, you know, maybe there's more to talk about here, but let's kind of wrap this up right now. Everybody feel like we covered some things, answered some questions?
Yeah, it helped a lot. I mean, I feel more confident now that I could write something up and feel like I'm keeping up with the region and keeping up with the expectation.
Good.
Yeah, does that help?
Cool. All right, so the next thing we're going to do, and please
This, or?
say again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm going to take the
gonna, like this.
He wants the third up front.
Go.
Just create
you
a
can
third,
export
put
this
it
as a
on.
project file for us to download later.
Here's my PayPal.
No, why don't you walk up? You can take a picture of it with your phone if you want. There, and we'll say ramp up.
Oh, you are.
And we'll do that. And we'll go here. And we'll do that.
Now you're just showing off.
And then we'll go like that. And that.
That's beautiful.
That was very whimsical.
That doesn't look easy at all. That doesn't look like.
Get the amount up front and call your lawyers. So, all right.
You know, the other, so I was looking at some, you know, somebody had a proposal out there for some video. I think it was today I was looking at it. But anyway, he was like, base it on this, and I just couldn't believe how so many of the animations looked like they were straight up like a PowerPoint, like the way the text came in. That's what you're modeling. That's actually okay. But, I mean, is that pretty common for people just to say, I want it to look like this thing out here on the internet? You know?
I get that a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like that's
Probably.
common for people with no imagination.
Yeah.
Or they go, I want it to be a viral video.
Don't
Yeah, I get that all the time.
we all, ma'am? Don't
I'm
we
like-
all?
The viral filter on it.
You know, make it go viral.
That's when
Well,
you charge them. That's when you charge them for the YouTube crew.
Or they use, or
No
they,
royalties.
or they think that YouTube is a genre. You know, we
Yeah.
want to make a YouTube video. No, YouTube is a vehicle, not
Make a
not
video.
a genre. You know.
You sure you don't want to make an Instagram video?
Yeah, Vine.
Okay, so we now have Adobe Fuse at our disposal if we are in the Creative Cloud. And I just wanted to kind of show you guys a couple things about it, show you that it's not really scary, but that you can actually pull it out and do some stuff with it. Maybe see if we can get some ideas from you guys on how you can use it. But just kind of start with, we have the Assemble tab here, and I'm going to come over and find this.
Is this within After Effects or standalone?
This is standalone. So we have a male, and we're going to give him a body, and really it's just walking me through this. We'll do a leg, just click what leg I want, and then click the arm I want. And there are zombies, and there are all kind of stuff in here. So once we do that, we'll go to customize over here with clothing. That's what. So you can come in here and make his head bigger and smaller, and hands and thin as waist, and
It's like a video game.
That's
big
what I was
thighs
just
and
about
stuff
to
like
say.
that. Yeah.
You're creating your sim character.
Right,
Yeah.
that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Then we can come over here, and I'm gonna do what?
Me.
So we
Give
got.
him the dress.
Now he looks like a
Wonderful.
creeper,
Yeah.
Stalker alert.
but we will add pants.
Which
Thankfully,
will make it a little better.
yeah, but not skinny
There's
pants.
the kilt right there.
We'll do dress pants.
Okay, I'm totally playing.
Okay. Then we have hair. Oh, we can do shoes. So we'll just do some boots. We have hair. Very exciting hair. We'll do that one. And
Yeah, it looks like an FBI agent.
loads of hats. But he's not FBI. He is MI5.
Inspector
Or
Clouseau.
yeah. I'm basically making Inspector Clouseau. So
Or Mr. Magoo.
we can do this right here.
Mustache, yes.
Put a little moustache on
Now
Oh
he's French.
him. The only thing I can't do is give him a French accent.
Much of a shame.
So, of course, go in and play with this yourself. It's very, very easy to figure out what's going on in here.
So is it only people models?
Yes, only people.
Humanoids, right?
But then, once you're done here with this guy,
What's that last one? Texture?
yes, texture. So you can work through the various patterns and colors and things like that.
Logo on his t-shirt.
Yeah. So, yes.
Oh, that's where you change the color of whatever he's wearing.
Yeah. So we do this, and we'll do. I don't know if we can do color there or like pants. We can change button colors and.
So like you can make that like a felt like a pea coat or something?
Probably so.
Okay.
But then you eventually get textures out of here. So I think it would be UV mapped. So if you do that, then you could even go in later on and adjust the UV textures as well. But you can deal with textures on your own. We're going to send this to Mixamo, and I'm going to call him Inspector 2, because I already have an inspector that we're going to look at later. So once you click Upload, it uploads to a web app called Mixamo, which has also recently been purchased by Adobe. And Mixamo is pretty crazy because Mixamo will load this character and rig it for you, put bones in there in a T rig, and you'll see this in just a minute. But then Mixamo has, I don't know if it's thousands or more of captured, I don't know how hand animated they are, but they may be mocapped animations that you can then apply to your model. And for various and sundry reasons. So we were doing a project, R&D, and I needed a 3D person or a 360-degree rotation of a person. So I just pulled out Fuse made a person, sent it up to Mixamo, and I told Mixamo,
Come on.
Can you,
That's too easy.
if
It's
you-
like cheating.
if you were to make like your own like say a cartoony character in Cinema 4D that's very simple, could you throw it in Mixamo and it rigs it?
yes, I believe so.
Okay.
So we have this guy, and we can add things like
Samba dancing?
we're walking and we get shoved.
What?
Wow.
Dude.
Oh, sick.
Dang.
And hip hop dance.
Oh no.
That's
Those
that's very bad dancing.
It does have a lot of flourish.
And boxing.
So are you able to see these keyframes?
They got
somewhere?
the Gangnam in there somewhere.
I'll show you in just a minute. But there are a wide variety of things. So let's see, superhero. How about this?
Superhero
Oh my
lady.
gosh.
The role.
The Shatner roll.
Oh man.
Oh, how about here's one. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh.
The
Up the
backflip.
wall.
Come on.
Nice.
All right. I'm not sure a lot of superheroes do that,
Dude,
but
with his hand.
it's pretty cool. He's grabbing onto something, right?
Yeah, it's a grab
Like
it.
the walls.
Window or
Is
it
something.
like a
Window.
half
Yeah,
wall?
window. Okay.
Wall's not included.
He's grabbing onto some guy's head. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, maybe it's kicking.
Bam! Okay. So here we go. Then we come over to let's see, my account. Oh, they also have characters that you can see here. So you can load up zombies and cartoon guys and a bunch of people from video games. There's a little cartoony dude there.
So, if you wanted to use one of these in a design, can you do that? I mean, they're
I think, read the fine print,
okay.
but I think these are royalty free.
That's awesome.
Now you have access to them.
Yeah,
Okay, like if you want to purchase a person from Turbo Squid or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
you can have Mixamo put the skeleton in it, and then
And
get
then
the
animate
animation.
it?
Yeah.
Where do you animate it with?
Are you saying the
Like-
3D software?
Yeah. Do
Or-
you do
okay.
Cinema
Yes,
4D?
we're going to look at that in just a sec.
Okay.
I was actually trying to find my account stuff in Mixamo. Because I wanted you guys to see some stuff that I had done.
So you can put your characters on the library and pull them in? The Adobe
Yeah.
library?
Yes.
In your- or-
You.
yeah.
So what I do is, okay, so we can get this guy as a T. Anyway, I am apologize. I have in the past gone to this thing here and said like this. This is how I feel right now.
How many font changes you want?
Can't get Mixamo to work, guys. Like that. So I'm not exactly sure why I can't find my people.
Alright, you can make a Game of Thrones zombie bear.
That's right. But what I did earlier is I went here and I said, download this guy with the animation. And maybe they're trying to streamline it. That's why it's not working. So this is how I feel right now because I'm going to hit download like that. We'll get the FBX and we can change frames per second if we want. Reduce keyframes so there's more spline based. And we can do just the skeleton if we want. I would hit download. And
Is FBX the only format you can?
no. So when we were looking earlier, we saw that on the upload of the guy, I could tell it I wanted, if I want Collada or FBX or whatever, and it would say, oh, this typically is used in this particular software package.
Can you put it
that-
in
that
Cinema
situation.
40?
Yes, we're going to do that.
Okay.
If I can figure out how to, there we go. All right, but I don't want that. There we go. So I'm going to come over to, don't save.
So what does Fuse actually do?
Fuse creates the OBJ. It skins, or it creates the OBJ, the model, and the UV with the textures, and sends it to Mixamo.
Gotcha.
As a T character. And then Mixamo puts the bones in and gives you the animation. So what we do here is, oh, you know what I wanted to do? You know, right? You know what I wanted to do? I wanted to do a walk cycle that is static. Or a run cycle, maybe a run cycle that's static. Because I want it to be exciting. And I like this guy here. Like that, but I want him to be running in place. Okay. So I'm going to download that.
Now, how did you tell it to run in place and not take off running?
There's a little button here that says in place. And you can do mirror, I believe, which will just flip the animation to the opposite side.
Mm.
So now the asset is downloaded. I can show in Finder. It lives right here. Those two guys. And this is going to be inspector running like that. And we'll go put these in the meeting folder.
So you download it from Mixamo,
Yes.
and I'm assuming that when you download it, it doesn't have that light information in there.
It doesn't have what information?
The light, like, see, he's got a light on him, he's casting a shadow and all that kind of stuff.
Right. That is just for
For that, yeah.
me to kind of see what's going on.
Sure.
Yeah, in the preview. All right, so I will go to Cinema 40, and I can open, do Command O, and open. Let's get Inspector 4. I'm going to delete that and load Inspector 4. Okay, so these are some interesting settings here. It's possible that the lights and cameras and all that kind of stuff will come in, but I will just use what I have in Cinema 4D. I do want to bring in the geometry data for this, otherwise it'll just bring in bones and animation.
So the character gets its own lights? When you bring
It's,
it, or you
I don't know.
can
Let's
bring
see.
it in with
Let's see what
lights?
happens when I do that.
Okay.
And then we have a little Mixamo import box here, and I'm just going to let it be what it is. There we go. And his fingers look totally awesome,
Oh my
Ugh.
but
It looks like a rake.
if we hit play on this, you can see that he has a little animation loop. He's just standing there like that.
Yeah.
And that is all happening here in the bones. And it's deforming all of this other stuff up here. So I can come into this hierarchy here and take this thing here and go like that. I can come in and adjust stuff, but I'm not going to. We'll do that a little bit later. So what I'll do is I'll copy all of this and change over to my window here and paste. So you can see that the camera and light did not come in. So I'm just going to go here and do a little bit of that. So there's my guy.
So you added lights?
I had, yes.
Okay.
I had lights in there. And so it brought in textures here, and it brought in my geometry up here. Okay. So now I want to go back over to this guy, close it, and again, because I opened it twice, I'm going to open one or two more of these. And I'm not going to get geometry data this time. We can see here. Joints.
Okay, what did you do to get joints?
Okay, I went to the filter, my view filter panel, and I just checked joint. And now we can see, yeah, this little thing right here. Okay. So what's exciting about this is that I believe, we'll try this out and see if it works. I believe I can just copy the joints and come in here and paste like that. And so I'm going to take this spy text and go like that. And this is the original. And I'll come over here to animate, top menu, animate. Keep in mind that not all functions are available in all versions of Cinema 4D. Okay? This is for you to know that this exists. And if someone comes to you and says, hey, we need a guy running, you can go, oh, I know how to make that happen. We just need to do this to get it to happen. You can also use Blender with these objects. So Blender's a free 3D software package, and it's very good. It's very powerful. It has a huge learning curve. You have to spend a lot of time running through tutorials and watching other people use Blender before you actually really get your head around how to navigate it and how to do things in there. But this isn't Blender. This is Cinema 4D, and we're going to do Add Motion Clip and call this what is this, standing? Like that. Hit OK.
What was the, I'm sorry, what was the,
I'll do it again. So here we'll go animate, add motion clip. And there's some tutorials available, and I can make sure that everybody sees tutorials out there. So I'll do add motion clip, and this is going to be run afraid. I'll hit OK. And Cinema 4D has added these tags over here. It's the motions tag, motion system tag. And if I change my window to animation, I have this motion little button over here. I have keyframes, F-curves, and this motion mode. So in motion mode, I can take this, I believe, let's see, go here. It's going to work, guys, I promise. Because I did it earlier and it worked. All right. So they're standing. You can see that he is standing, and we'll do, this is the new one, I think. Put it here. This is Run Afraid. And I don't know everything there is to know about this panel. I only know, there we go. So I'm going to delete that. So this is the Run Afraid situation. And you remember that when I brought over Run Afraid, I only brought over the skeleton. and the animation. I didn't bring over the actual guide again. But what I can do is use this with crossfades. Okay, so I'm going to go back over here to the filter panel and turn off the joints so we can see the guy. And we will zoom in a little bit. Let's do a little camera move. Here, and set some keyframes. Camera. That. I don't want you to see what's going on, but you will. Like that, and just move the camera over here. It's that keyframe, and now we have totally awesome.
Why did you say his fingers came in like that?
I don't know. I really have no idea.
It's literally just a fluke or something?
Yeah, I think
really?
it's just a fluke. And we may be able to go in at some point and adjust, like down his arms.
Is that called the bones?
So-
Or what are you
Yes.
doing right now?
Yes, these are all the bones.
So that crossfade you did
Oh, yeah,
basically
fingers.
between the standing and the running.
Correct.
That's awesome.
And can we see the keyframes and like tweak those even if we wanted to?
Yes, I believe so. So we'll come up here to this guy and joints, and maybe now that I've made it a motion system tag, given it a motion system tag, can't see that the keyframes. But let's open another thing, guys. I gotta tell you, I think that is really cool.
It is
Oh,
cool.
it's amazing.
I mean, come on.
That
You
puts
could
a
do-
lot of 3D animators out of business.
I mean, you could do an opener in less than an hour, in about an
Yeah,
hour.
yeah.
I mean,
Charge like 5,000, 8,000.
Yeah.
3D work.
And like the textures are pretty good.
Game changer.
It's
Wow.
it's flipping his code around, you know. So, all right. So let's open up.
how long it would take me to hand animate that? Wow.
And it wouldn't look like that.
No.
No, it wouldn't look good at all.
So
And his
he didn't
son
mean
would
anything by that.
probably- It's true. I don't do that. So
No, I mean, I wouldn't make it look like
So we're gonna just make a new project here and paste some of that stuff in. Go look through my camera. I think maybe I'll get rid of. Let's see, I can see my keyframes here. I'll just get rid of my camera keyframes like that. And then maybe I want to see him doing something cool. He's not just a fraidy cat. So we'll do camera here and say keyframe, and maybe like that. Did I change it? Yeah. We'll go like that, and then just move over like this. Okay. So there we go. Keyframe. So the camera does that deal. And we will open. And I'm trying to remember at what point I did this. I should have named these before I brought them in, or before I exported them. So here he is. Oh, a little jump back. That's pretty good. Open this guy. And it's opening them into, each one into its own project. Okay, this is the one I want.
See, but they kick someone across the face.
He's doing a little like jump off of the thing like that. So, and I keep in mind, I've just started playing with this, not the expert yet. I am going to put this into a null just to see if moving the null around is a good idea and all that, and I think it will be to still get the animation. Yeah, okay. So, you know, it's not perfect. Kind of drifts through his...
Got a little bit of overlap
Yeah.
there.
Code there.
Or it's Captain Dan. So there we go. There's the guy. He's jumping. And we're going to call this jumping guy and copy him into this next thing here. We'll paste. And let's see, where is he? There he is. Oh, he may be huge. Let's go back. Oh, he's just right up by the camera. So we'll take this over and down. Let's get him on the floor. Make sure. And you can see the keyframes here. And I think we can even edit the keyframes. Let's now see if we can get him, make sure he's on the wall. Good enough for right now. And we can take those down like that. And then if we go back to our camera, too close to him. That's okay. Bring my spy stuff up out of the floor so I can make sure he touches the thing. It's really fun watching people tweak.
So you're not keyframing any of that.
I'm not keyframing it. All I'm doing is moving the null around.
Okay, so you're just positioning him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Maybe have the camera look up a tiny bit there. All right. So now, oh, maybe we need the camera to come from on the other side of this thing. Like that. Yeah, still not what I want. So we're matrix now. Okay. Now let's go mix something. So we have that. We have this thing. All right. So Let's load one more piece. Are you going?
Yeah, sorry.
It was nice to sign out. It was
Bye.
nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so this is that run cycle, and all I need to do is copy the
Just the bones,
bones.
part, yeah.
Copy the bones, and I'll go over to, just go to this guy right here, and paste. Nope, I don't want to do that.
So you could just bring them in once and then just copy the bones of every other movement in and just bring those in.
Correct.
That's neat.
All right, so there's that, and we can then also copy.
No, actually,
That's the walking backwards one. We'll copy that one also.
Are you
And
recording all this?
I'm broadcasting it on YouTube.
So you are.
Paste that in right there.
Yeah, I was watching while I was waiting outside.
Oh, sorry, dude. Okay.
Are you at this one?
So now we have 3 of these things, and I'm going to do. I'll start. Let's say start with this one. And I'll go back to my standard. The only way I know how to find this menu is to go to Startup, is what it is. Go to Startup, Animate, Add Motion Clip, and I'll call this Pose 1 because I can't remember exactly what it is. And then I'll go here and do Motion Clip, and Pose 2, go here, Animate, Add Motion Clip, Pose 3. So then we'll go over to the animation layout, and here are all my poses. So I think that one is just the jump back. And let's make sure I have enough frames to work with here. And then I'll take pose 1, put it in here. We'll see what pose 1 is. Pose 1 is running. Pose 3. So with pose 1, here I can also zoom out a little bit and tell it, I can drag them as a group, but I can stretch this out like that, and you can see the timing, the percent changes. So if I hit play, he's running in slow-mo. Okay. I can also do a loop. I think it is just relative loop right there.
Would that be where earlier you had the option to like simplify the animation? Like, would you see it more there? Or maybe you would.
No, I think that's just keyframes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's just keyframes. And there are a lot of different things you can do in here. But oh, and there's the pivot. So the pivot comes in to play. Instead of me using that null object, I can use a pivot object, and it's specifically designated for this. And I can put the pivot in there, use the pivot to move the guy around, and apply that pivot to the other poses as well. So they all follow the same pivot. And you know, if I can't figure out what to do, I can just put this guy, the running pose, in here again. And so he just runs and runs. Let's put it in one more time. That, and then we can mix that, and just see what happens.
No.
Let's go back to the beginning. So he didn't have anything going on up here. I need to grab all those and bring them back like that. And we'll go down to 32. That motion wasn't exactly what it needed to be. Of course, you're gonna, when you mix your motions, you know, he did need to kind of be up there like that. So maybe I can put the run closer up. Very scared. All right. Okay. Now, not everybody has Cinema 4D full version, but you do have, if you have After Effects, you have Cinema 4D Lite. If you have Creative Cloud After Effects. So what we can do is, let's see, Agent Guy. We'll call this Agent Guy C4D. And we'll put it here. And it's going to open up C4D Lite for me. And I can open in C4D Lite. My inspector. And you'll see that a lot of stuff is not supported. But it should go ahead and import him anyway. We're going to do this until we make it work. Did it say it's already a thing? Read file. All right, so let's try this.
That's still running.
He cares for you. All right, let's see. Maybe.
What's the other file type besides FBX?
Collada. And Collada is used, I think, with SketchUp and maybe 3ds Max or something like that.
Use it with Peanut.
Say again?
Peanut.
Peanut Collada. Pete got jokes. I'm wondering. Seems like some things have changed since the last time I tried to bring something in. So we're going to do this again. We're going to do mail. And legs. And arms.
Feels like we're buying a robot.
Yeah. Some active wear. Like he's going to the beach. That's good enough. And save this as a fuse. Export as OBJ. Pack textures. Okay. So this is going to be probably where Mix-and-Mo is very important, because we can bring this guy in, but we really need to have Mix-and-Mo do something for us. We need Mix-and-Mo to do the T-pose and all that. All right, so let's see if we can make this from start to finish in Mix-and-Mo. Can you guys see like the potential power of this?
Oh yeah.
Even if you can just get an OBJ file out of it with textures.
Oh yeah. Well, the fact that even if you can just bring in a rig like the bones,
yeah,
to where you can animate yourself, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's what I hope will happen here. I had something previously. Let's close that. I had some guys that I had created for like a Memorial Day thing. Or some, there we go, patriotic soldiers. Can I open anything for me? Okay, that's usually what I get. I get that the joints don't work because of C4D Lite. But what I can do is go in here and get a soldier and put him from AP, I'll say, edit this. My agent guy. Okay, so now I have a soldier, and he actually does have bones. So I can, and there's the animation path that would be available right there. But I can twirl down here and get to his shoulder. Oh, maybe that's the deal. Maybe that's the deal. Maybe I can't do that in like deforming and stuff like that inside C4D Lite. Man, I was going to give you guys something awesome.
Sure, there you go.
How awesome is that?
Disembodied.
You can do that, you should be able to do the other stuff.
Yeah. So I have hat, and I have body, and I have arms.
So C4D Lite doesn't do all the
Shoot.
the bones animation.
Yeah, I guess not.
So if you have a rigged out character, you have to use that. So if he's stuck like that, what does he do along that animation path?
Nothing. It just, I think that's just his hips or something like that to animate. Yeah. Man, this bums me out, guys. I thought I was going to give you something cooler. I've already given you something cool. I mean, what can you ask for?
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
I mean, I'm surprised that Fuse doesn't, or Mix-and-Mo doesn't play as well with Cinema 40 Lite. I mean, maybe
Well,
there's
yeah,
probably
you
some
shouldn't.
workarounds.
Yeah, you shouldn't be surprised
Yeah.
because C40 Lite is very light. Um,
That's true.
Nearly free.
use this character.
But ultimately, this is something you're supposed to bring into Photoshop, all right?
No, that is a different app.
Oh.
You can.
Project Felix,
Yeah, Project Felix.
Oh.
which I have used actually for work. It
Okay.
works pretty well.
But those,
But
it's the
it's
same type of characters and things like that, right?
No, it,
Or what is
it doesn't have any characters built into it.
It's just a render.
It's just it does have like some basic
Okay, yeah, I've
models
seen
and
the
stuff.
video, probably, yeah.
It's for rendering 3D comps. Putting something in the background.
Yeah.
It's a little easier to use than integrated Photoshop 3D
Yeah.
tools. It's an interesting idea. Hopefully they develop it.
All right. So here's Blender.
So,
I'm gonna delete that and import.
It's so hard if you use any other 3D program.
I've never-
Why?
I've never given it to.
But if you don't, if you don't come with any expectations, then you can learn it.
Where is he? Downloads.
I mean, just like how you select things, move them around. It's just like, what?
So I'll go to desktop and just save this
The
over
interesting thing is it was developed by
here like that, and now I can go to Blender
you know, like 3D designers or whatever.
and get my
So-
beach guy here.
It's built intelligently. Like what you can do, it's just different. It doesn't follow the normal like user experience conventions that other apps, like Autodesk, all their Sim 4D.
And I had earlier today. I had brought in the guy with the poses and the animations and that kind of stuff, and he actually came in. He does have his bones.
That's what I like about modern 3D is it's just simple. Like, it does what it's supposed to do, and it's easy to navigate it.
So we do have.
Very friendly.
It's a,
With the after effects.
yeah.
You can add roles.
Mm.
Yeah.
At any rate,
But it's not.
Learning curve.
learning curve.
Do some on it,
Sorry guys, my fault.
but
Sorry.
I'll give you something. Let's see, can I give you something that doesn't have to do with any of that? That's still cool. I'll give you an expression. All right. So Morris had a question.
Yeah, I want to know about point control.
I'm doing point controllers with expressions.
By the way, that worked for me today.
It did. Okay, good.
I only played with it for like 5 minutes, but
So I'm going to put a solid in here. Correct. You want to do the right on effect,
yeah, I was doing the right on.
and that is under generate right on. And I'm going to right on transparent. And maybe we'll do a null. And put a wiggle on the null. Then we can use, make the brush position the null. So we're drawing out that wiggle. But maybe we don't want that. Maybe we want that null and we want another null that wiggles around that null. And that's going to be what we draw with. So we'll have this be null controller. We'll have this be null writing. That's going to be parented to here. You can see the two nulls. This one moves, and this one moves along with it, but also has its own wiggle. Okay, so if I, instead of, on this expression here, instead of using the null controller, I use null writing. See what happens. So it can't figure out what to do. I think it's probably drawing up here because it's using the position.
Well, if you look at the null controller, or yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the null controller is out here in the comp space, and null writing, because it's parented to null controller, is putting itself in relationship to the 0, 0, which is, and this null is right up here on the corner. Okay, so null writing has positioned itself 128 frames to the left, which is negative, and 87 pixels down. When I look over here on this write on effect, it's trying to write 128 pixels over here and 87 pixels down. We don't want that. Okay, we want to use this right here. If I can get my pen up like that. So if you look over at the info, you can barely see up there. It's 466 and 480 on the X and Y. That's what I want. There's a little expression you can use. We'll put in here. I'll do L. This is just the way I write it. You can put any variable there you want. I'm going to do L, and L is going to equal the null writing layer. Okay, so I can just do L and pick whatever layer I want, or I already have it in there. And I'm going to do L dot to comp. Syntax is important. That capital C is important. And I'll do some parentheses. So to comp is going to use some information, and the information I'm going to give it is the anchor point for this null writing. So wherever this anchor point is, not in relationship to the previous null, but in relationship to this whole comp, to comp, that's where it's going to put the values. Okay, so I hit enter here. You can see now it's drawing where that null is in relationship to the comp and not in relationship to the parent. That also works if you are doing things in 3D space and you need to parent something, like you have a camera revolving around something. Just do like this. Put camera, put a null, make it 3D, and attach the camera to the null. And then if I rotate the null, just on the y-axis, and do 360 divided by 5 seconds times time. So I'm going to go 360 units, and in rotation, that's degrees, 360 units divided by how many seconds I want to go over, and then multiply it times time. That way it moves forward in time. And then if I put another, I can just drag a null in here like this and put it in 3D space. Maybe I'll change the color like that. Just offset it a little bit. Okay, so I'm rotating around that. We'll put another null in there. I'll set it a little bit. Like that. Let's say I wanted some text to follow this red null, this red layer. So I'll go red, like that. And instead of parenting this, I could put it in 3D space and parent it to red. Just name that red. That one's going to be green. This is going to be rotate. So if I parent the word to the all these nulls, actually it's parented. It's sitting in 3D space and the camera is moving around. Okay, so it's rotating around that word or revolving around that word. So then maybe I parent it to red, and that doesn't do anything. Or I say maybe the position. I'll get the position of red and paste it there. Maybe move it up a little bit, like that. So now we should be good, right? No, we're not good, because that's not exactly what I want. What I really want to do is have this not be 3D, but I want it to follow red on the X and Y axis. So I will do position, do my same formula here, L equals, and I'll pick whip red down there. If I can get it to work out for me. Don't want parent. Oh, sorry, expression. My fault. And then L dot to capital C comp L anchor point with a capital P. And now if I play this, so it follows red on the X and Y, it doesn't follow it on the Z. And because it's not 3D, the camera is not turning around it. Okay, so then I can go, maybe that's good, but not exactly what I want. I'll say POS minus value. And I just made another variable called POS, and I did minus value. And I can change this value like that to whatever I want. So on the X, I'll leave it right where the red is, and I can move it on up and down on the Y. Do a RAM preview. Like that. So now my heads-up display is looking more like a heads-up display than a goofy thing that's spinning around uncontrollably. Okay. So there's your tip. This expression. L and the layer that you want to find the position of inside the comp. I'll do this. So L, the layer you want, that, and then you do the variable again, which is L dot to comp. And inside parentheses, you do L dot anchor point.
That's really cool.
So that comes in handy a lot. If you have things revolving around 3D space and you want to connect them with a beam effect, you can do the start of one null position anchor point for the starting of the beam, anchor point for the other one for the position of the beam, and no matter where they go in 3D space, the beam will always connect them.
Can we get that file?
I can make something available.
Yeah, cool.
Do a couple examples. All right.
Appreciate it.
Now, meeting's almost over. Thank you guys for being here. If you weren't here and you're watching the stream, I apologize, but it's time for giveaways, and you don't get to be a part of that. Dallas After Effects user group is at facebook.com/groups/DallasAEUG. Please get involved if you haven't done so yet. And I would encourage everyone, when you're posting on the site, I typically leave it open for people to post. Please post about motion graphics and VFX and that kind of stuff. I'm going to start deleting posts. I'm actually going to delete this.
Oh, the movie guy.
Yeah, I'm going to be deleting posts that don't have anything to do with motion graphics and stuff like that. So we'll keep it to that, and I'll look forward to seeing you guys the 4th Thursday of next month. It's nice to meet all you new guys. Way to go. You made it out. Congratulations. If you have any questions, please find me on the Facebook group. We have a lot of heads in this room that understand a lot of stuff about After Effects and Cinema 4D. So we can answer questions if you have questions. Be an active member of the group. And we are going to do our giveaways now.